Hello everyone. Today I want to show you another end game. This end game is from Varna 1958, the Varna Olympiad, and the two players are Tal with the white pieces, yes, the former world champion, Mikhail Tal, and with the black pieces, a player named Durasevic. And this is in 1958, so it's 2 years before Tal became world champion. But this is during his prime and peak years, which took place between 1957 and 1960. Many would agree that this was Tal's strongest period of chess. Now here we have before us a real simple ending, and if you want, you can stop the video and set up the pieces on the chessboard or whatever, and think about it. It's white to move. Um, Tal in this case, and just think about the position, what you would be trying to do first. So you can do that if you wish, but now I'm going to go on with the analysis of the position. Now, um, as you can see, white has a Tal, as a 3-2 majority on the queen side, and black has a 4-3 majority on the king side. Um, And again, with White to move, he has a chance to, making, some important headway here. And one thing I want to point out is just looking at both of the pawn structures, they're in good condition, right? Each side has two pawn islands. There's nothing, really out of place here. Um, so it's kind of like maybe you would assess the position as equal or drawers. Those are things that you should be thinking of. But what I like to look at here is that notice black's pawn structure on the queen side, and you'll see this many times, especially if you're familiar with the Rui Lopez, this A6 B5, right? You'll also see this in a Sicilian defense, this type of setup, right? Where A6 has been played and B5 at some point, and perhaps you know Tau castled queen side, right? And now this is the ending. All the pieces have been heavy pieces have been traded off, and minor pieces for that matter. And sometimes that A6 B5 push early in the game turns out to become a liability because bringing the pawns closer to the enemy makes them easier to be attacked and harder to protect here. All right, so with all of that said, um, being white here, you have to think that your main goal here, you always have to have some type of objective in the game. Your goal here is to try to create a passed pawn. You have three pawns to two, so you want to um, create a passed pawn on the queen side. And of course, black wants to do the same thing, but on the opposite side of the board. So now that you know that's your objective, now how would you go about doing it? Okay, many players would, weaker players would try to, rush and play a move like B3, right, and try to get it started right away. So for example, after these random moves, there's your pawn. You're right, you have a passed pawn, but notice now that white's queen side pawns have become considerably weaker, and now that they're both isolated. After king d6, king c2, and g5, now white is faced with the dilemma here. If he captures, then black's king side majority is fully mobilized. So for example, f takes g5, h takes g5, and say h3, not g3 because of g4, h3, f5, g3, and the idea is for white to create his own pass pawn there. e5, h4, f4, h5, and there's a little race, and black is going to win this, okay, because of the additional pawns. And again, this is just a random line. He has these additional pawns on the queen side, and black is not gonna end up in a perpetual check. But I just want to show you that, you know, how important these pawn moves are. And if you rush, this the same line again after g5. Say white tries to play g3, then g4 happens. And notice white ends up in the, almost like a zugzwang position with his kingside pawns. None of them can move, and that's a dangerous situation to be in. Um, right here, I'm gonna quote Max Erva from one of my favorite books called The Middle Game, and right here he's speaking about closed positions in general, but then he mentions the pawns. And he says, quote, if these flank pawns lose their mobility for one reason or another, the result is always a serious positional disadvantage. Then he says such a position can be compared to a bird with a broken wing still trying to fly. End quote. So basically what he's saying is that it's real bad to allow um, the mobility to be sucked out of your any of your pawn structure. So right here, white can't really move. You see, and when you become immobile, then it's easy to attack. So in this game, in this example, after king d2, king c5, king c3, f6, notice the white king side pawns are immobile. This pawn is now immobilized, being blockaded by the king. So all white can really move is this a pawn and try to shuffle his king back and forth. This is a recipe for disaster because black can just simply mobilize his majority now. So just check out this sample line. So king d3, a5, king c3, just shuffling back and forth. a4, right? Now he only can move the king. This is like full paralysis here. King d3, e5, f5, h5, king c3, and e4. And as you can see now, this pawn will become a distraction to white. White will be drawn away to try to stop it. The c pawn will then fall, and then black will just scoot over and grab the a pawn. All right. Now, why did I show you all of that? Because it's a rookie's mistake. A lot of amateurs make the mistake of just trying to push the pawns right away. Right? They understand, oh, okay, I need to make a pass pawn, so then they try to make a race out of it. But you have to look at the position objectively and understand that, say you had everything going your way, right? And you were able to create a pass pawn. The pawn still has to be um, assisted by the king. In other words, if this pawn was free up here, by itself, and say these pawns were gone, the A and B pawn, this king will just come over and snatch the pawn anyway. So that lets you know right there that uh, the pawn has to be assisted. So this is why we place our king in the center of the board. Like you hear about that, put your king in the center in the endgame. Well, the reason is because in the center the king serves as an attacking piece and a defensive piece at the same time. The attacking aspect is that it will assist in the creation and maintenance of the pass pawn. The defensive aspect is that the king will assist in the defense of the king side, and also stopping black from achieving his goals of mobilizing a king side majority and creating a pass pawn for himself. So let's look at what Tal did. Tal played king d2, king d7. So both guys know what's going on. They're centralizing the kings. King d3, king d6. Now Tal plays c4. Now notice the difference. Now here, after b takes c4, king takes c4. Notice that his pawns remain a duo. Okay, so no weakening has been created. Durasevic plays e5. Of course, he wants to get going, Tal simply takes the pawn. F takes e5. Just to show you another variation, if g5, g3, g takes f4, g takes f4, h5, then h4, f6, and then b4. And notice how um, white is able to slow down the black pawn majority on the queen side long enough so that he can push his pawns on the queen side himself. All right, so let's go back. So after c4, b takes c4, king takes c4, and e5 was played during the game. F takes e5 check, king takes e5, and b4. All right, so notice how the king, Tal's king, that is the on c4, is in a position to assist the pawn up the board. F5, so now we just have a race here. b5, a takes b5, king takes b5. Again, look at the position of the king. There's no way that black can stop the white king from assisting the pawn, so he just pushes his own majority. F4, a4, g5, a5, g4. If he tries to get back to stop the pawn, it's too late. It's king d6, and then king c4. Some of you would have played king b8, but then would have, king b6, and then would have been in trouble after g4. This move would be incorrect. So king c4, king c6, king d4, king b5, king e4, king takes, and notice how that pawn has been a decoy to get the black king all the way over. And king takes h6, king takes g5, and black. This is analysis by Boris Avkov actually, and black would be lost here. So what was played in the game was g4. Black just kept going for it, and now here's an important move in the game. This Tal played king c4. Right, just getting with the same idea of using the a5 pawn as a decoy. And remember, the king is an offensive and defensive piece. Here, Tal plays some defense, right? And he just simply drops the pawn, drops the king back, and he steps into the square of this pawn right here. And if you don't know what that is, what in the square is, look at some of my other endgame videos. But basically, if you draw an imaginary line like this from f4 to c1 to c4 and then to f1, you have like this square. Well, Tal steps in the square, so that way if this pawn pushes, he can just simply capture, and he knows he can stop the pawn. Okay, so Tal, if he pushes, he can stop the pawn, and if the black king tries to go back, then this pawn just becomes a decoy, and then Tal picks up these pawns, and he wins like that. Now, so king c4, king d6, king d4, as I said, wins. And if he tries to cut, if he tries to cut Tal off with e4, king e4, then a6 is gonna win. Notice the king is right on the checking square, and so after king c4, black resign. So Tal was an awesome endgame player also, as you can see. A6, A6 will be a mistake here because of F3. You see, so you have to be real precise in the endings. Black might even be slightly better. It might be perpetual or something here, but anyway, the point is you will be throwing away a winning game as white if you played A6. If you just got lazy and just threw the pawn up to A6. King C4. So it's important to play offense and defense, and that's the purpose of centralizing the king. It's not just an offensive move, right? It's assisting the pawns that need assisting as far as promoting promoting your goals. In this case, just creating a pass pawn on the queen side, and it's being there to stop your opponent's ideas. So I wanted to show you this real simple and basic endgame, and hopefully you can incorporate these ideas and think about it when you're playing your games. Again, this is just a simple creation by Tal of this pass pawn. And notice throughout he keeps his pawns healthy. He doesn't allow them to get isolated. He doesn't rush. And notice the agency of the king. Right, the king is right there, and then at the right time he plays defense. He puts the pawn on the fifth rank and he just leaves it there, and the opponent has to resign. There's nothing. He gets his majority going. You know, little bit too late. And there's a lot we can learn from just this simple ending. Sometimes just you waste time sometime in the middle game, or just having that tempo less can cost you. Like when Black played A6 and B5 early in the game, he probably never thought that he would be in a situation where White would be doing that to him, and now this A6 B5, which was meant to be aggressive, is now working against him. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.